Three, two. All right, now we're live. So, welcome to the podcast, your go to resource for all things Microsoft Dynamics 365. Chris.
And this is Brad. This episode was not recorded and it's live on June 6th, 2023. Chris. Here we are again trying to live from a different venue. In this episode, we're doing something a little different, a lot different, I guess, than what we usually do. In this episode, we decided to do a Winging It with Steph episode. Steph, welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Again. It's always a pleasure to have you on with your energy and excitement. How have you been?
Yes, I'm a little overwhelmed with the audience, the live audience that we've got. Oh, yes, bring it on. I am super stoked to be chatting with you guys, as always. How about you?
Things are going well on my end. Just living the busy life and trying to stay up with things. Chris, how about you?
It was conference, but it's much better.
I feel like we all kind of have this voice, this tone to our answers of like, how are you? And it's very, dare I say, melancholy, like not to dive in and go deep right off this winging it with Steph.
No, deep. Go deep.
Me, I'm always going to turn it on. But if like, guys is like, it's conference week. I'm good. So, kind of refreshing.
Why is it is for the realism, but I also heard on another note that that's not something you ask people, like how are you? You ask them other types of questions to draw information out. So it's, instead of like if you have children and they go to school and they come home, you don't say, how was your day? Because you just get fine. You say, hey, what was your favorite part of the day? What did you learn about in science? Did you like your lunch? What was your favorite part of that? To draw in the conversation. I don't know why I went that way, but the pressure
that you
of being
say that
live
because
with you.
We always go off on random tangents. This is why.
Yes.
With Steph is all we can come up with for a name. It's funny that you say that though, because I just saw on my feed this exact thing, and it said it was specifically for children, and it said instead of asking how their day was, ask the acronym or use the acronym SOAK, I think. And it was straightforward, open-ended, maybe action-oriented, and kid-friendly. And so it was like you ask that in mind, like an open-ended, make sure it's kid-friendly. If you have a second grader, what did you learn today is really heavy and hard for a second grader, but what did you do or what did you have at lunch? Like start the conversation with something very finite and specific. I don't know. Like I said, I breezed through it, but it's just so funny that we happened to come up with it. And of course it was for kids, but I think we need it as an adult.
No, I agree with you. Well, see, now I'm all messed up. Chris told me, the joys of live. I'm using the wrong microphone.
Oh no! The joys of live.
I had to point it out because it sounds very hollow.
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
Brad's using the wrong microphone.
'Tis life. So, you can swap it.
I can't swap it while we're live. I have to pause and come back.
Pause the live. Come back.
Can you even pause live? That's not real. That's not live anymore.
Well,
live.
Yeah. And we're back. How was that? Instant pause, instant return. Nobody even noticed.
I feel like there was some time travel stuff you just did right there.
Yes. And now we're back. Now I'm not as disheveled because why can't you hear me?
I thought that was weird. I wasn't gonna say anything.
Well, it's.
I can't see Chris.
Can you
It's
hear
the
me?
Steph show.
Can you hear me? This is. I don't even know what we're doing here with this live stuff, but winging it with
trial and
Steph,
error.
as we call it. No, it's good. We're trying to practice with this live stuff. We did it once before. It didn't go as well because of the internet connectivity, but today we just decided to do a trial run number 2 with you, and
Yes.
with our regular episode of winging it with Steph. Now we have to come up with a nice schedule to
Are
have
you
you on here. We'll
recording
have
right
the.
now?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
recording right now. Where have you been?
I know. Where have you been?
I can't hear him. I can't see him.
Oh, that's. Can you hear me though, Chris?
I can hear you.
Oh, so this whole time you didn't hear Brad, but you can hear me talking to Brad?
Let me log out and log back in. It's weird. I can hear you. And
This
see
is
you
great.
clearly.
See, this is Steph. This is why you have to do this live stuff, because you get to work out all the little issues. And Chris, I don't even know.
Well, I always tell people that. It's like some Jerry Seinfeld. Or not Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry
Springer.
Springer. That was such a great show when I was a young boy.
Really?
So
I
what do you
mean, that
always
was
tell
probably
people?
not appropriate for young boy viewing.
Well,
Jerry
I think I
Springer or
was
Jerry
in high
Seinfeld?
school or college. Jerry Seinfeld, I never really got into the Seinfeld show. I mean, I did
Me neither.
watch it here and there, but I was not hooked on it.
Exact
Jerry
same.
Springer I got into. So is Chris coming back?
He said he's coming back. He's going to jump off. And
Okay. See, this is
so
this,
we can
he did
stop
this on
time.
purpose.
We can lose people. We can gain people. This is pretty.
No, it's good. So let's keep going with the conversation that we had, what you were talking about now with the questions of how was your day. So we ended up on that. Let's get back on track.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll bring that back up. It's just I had a really I have a beautiful person in my life, and are probably 30. Wait, should not age her that much. We're probably 25 in age.
Chris is coming back.
Is he true?
Yeah,
Welcome.
did you hear the door knock? Had to
I did.
walk over and get him.
Oh,
Welcome back, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see me?
I can see you. I can hear you. All
Are you on a
good
better
now.
internet connection now? It looks like you have a better upload rate, so you're okay.
You know, man, I got to tell you, I've been using Mac Mini, and there's issues with Mac Mini Wi-Fi. So I just pulled up my MacBook and just joined there, and no issues.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
your
So,
picture's
Steph,
way
continue with
better.
your story. You have a good friend who's 35 years age difference. Younger or lower?
25.
Oh, 25. Younger or lower? I hope she's older.
Older
Okay,
than
I
me.
was going to say, if you're hanging out with somebody 25 years younger than you, I don't think they graduated preschool yet.
Yeah, I'd be babysitting at that point. No, so
Well, that's
yeah, which is fine. So yeah, we just have this beautiful relationship we've had for 6-7 years, and she's one of those friends who just comes in and out very serendipitously, amazing intuition, and she happened to call me today, and didn't as any business. Well, just as me, I was like too. But I always take her call. She's just one of those people, and we just roll right into the real. Like there's no, oh, how are you? Like there's no talk, it just rolled
I can't
right
stand the
into
small talk.
It's not that I can't stand it. I just really the real.
Yes.
And there's this song in my head, and I remember the artist's name, but the song is called Honest,
Sing it.
and she says it. I want that.
I want to hear a
Chorus.
little.
I'm gonna
Come on, give me a little chorus.
and you can
No, give me a
YouTube
little
for
chorus.
the full thing. So the chorus is, if I'm being honest, I'm not being honest. And it's just like, people always say, oh gosh, if I'm being honest, bad day. But most of she's saying, I'm not being honest. Things are good. I'm saying I'm having a great day. I'm saying, oh, it was conference week. the deep stuff, you know, I'm not being honest. That's what most of us answer with that. How are you? So it's just a really interesting thing that
people ask me that. I always typically my response is going to be, do you want me to lie or tell you the truth? Because
Yeah.
I also believe that sometimes the small talk, there is a time and place for the small talk, but sometimes there's a reason why you called me. There's a reason why we're speaking. You can just say, hi, how are you? Maybe it's just a cordial thing, but it's just like, okay, let's talk about winging it with Steph, which we now signed up for. You have to come up with topics. We're going to do it once a quarter. I'm just on a roll today with all these conversations that I'm having. So
I like it.
We'll do it quarterly. Put that on my list here.
I like it. Yeah, it's the cordialness of it. But sometimes it is just a matter. But I think that's almost what got us into the problem of.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so superficial. And some of it is, do you really even care how I'm doing? Like, you called me because you want to talk to me about you owe me money or you need my help or this or that. Do you really care how I'm doing? You may, but in general, I'm saying sometimes I'm more interested in the conversation, and we're just trained to know that you need to make someone feel like you care or you're interested. So you have to ask them all these questions.
Yeah.
I think the icebreaker should be something else. Like, oh, you have something on your nose.
When you really don't. They're going to go around the rest. Chris and I have done many icebreakers in our day. We served board together, and we led the culture of we've looked at many icebreakers in our day.
You know, I had a good time at that time, Steph. I think when we were on that same, working for that company, I had a good time. It was really good. I think we made a lot of change in the culture, and for a long time, it was really, really good. And I think, you can, I don't know, once we all dropped off, it kind of like, I don't know what happened to it.
The icebreaker in that context is a little bit different, because that's where you're trying to build a team. Those team building exercises where you may have a large group of people that you want to become comfortable with speaking with each other, working with each other, getting to know each other. So at that point, those icebreakers do help people draw out and start talking about things, where you throw out random questions for people to talk about things and to find something they can be comfortable with, to have comfort within that group. This is the icebreaker in the context of, I'm just calling you up. I'm going to do like a quick cordial, hey, how you doing? What I really don't care. And I just want to know, the reason why I called. So
My husband always says, fish on. He'll be on a conversation, and if someone calls, he'll say, fish on, like, get on. Ask him one day. I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, it's, like if you're fishing on the reel, like, you got to go. You got to reel it up, or a fish on the line. Like, it means I got to go. He doesn't fish. So I was like, I don't know what that means.
I like that, because you're going to lose them. Either you get right to it, or you're going to lose me. I like that. I'm going to start saying fish on, Chris. Every time you call me, I'm like, fish on.
It's perfect, right? Because like once it's fish on, you kind of, don't worry about anything around you. You have to get that fish in right away.
Yeah.
I like that. That was good. That was good. So that was good.
I think breakers, as far as in the term of like what Chris and I did, I'm going to toot our own horns. Influential to an entire large corporation.
Yeah, that's good.
Diminish like how big of a deal that was, and it's like people who are siloed, working in their little offices, and to like Brad, like to what you're saying, Brad, we never get to, do we really care? We got to start to even have the opportunity to know if we care about. One thing to be like, I know you and I choose not to care about you, or
it's not that you don't care about the people. In the context of the conversation that you're having, you may not care about how they're doing. You just want an answer to your question. But I think the team building helps bring together and foster a good relationship, to where you can work with each other and you realize and you understand each other. That's there's a big difference with not caring about a person versus not caring about how they're doing at that particular moment. It sounds kind of bad. Now you make me feel badly.
No, I think it's like you could because a human's a human.
And we're all of us.
Those sound effects kill me. You could care about a human because a human's a human, but you can't. The deeper care, the genuine care, can only as you start to know them. So just sitting silent in offices and caring about them because they're humans is so different than going through at least monthly culture building sessions and
yes,
icebreakers and outings. Like that's a different level of care that you have for these people.
But I will say though, it took a while, right? Because it wasn't like an overnight thing where like everyone now is like kumbaya, everything's working. It was kind of like steps that we had to take, and it's at the very beginning it didn't sound like it was genuine, right? Like it's just too cult like kind of thing, weird.
Yeah.
But it took a while as we got as we were we were consistent, and we started sharing. We're much more vulnerable. We're sharing our stories, and it allowed everyone to feel as comfortable. And I think at that point in time, like, oh, they actually care about us, right? Which in turn we actually did care. It just took a long time for them to care in return.
Is it caring or appreciated?
I think both.
I mean, there's a difference between being cared, like someone cares about me, or they appreciate what I'm doing in the context of the workplace. I'm speaking. I'm not talking. It may be some other circle where you're doing some team building type things, but in the workplace, it's even in just conversations. It's sometimes people just want to be appreciated and understood, and through those exercises, you can get a better understanding of a person. And then they can also feel appreciated because you take the time to talk to them about what they're doing and try to understand them. So it could lead to that appreciation feeling. This is all philosophical for the.
Well, I think it's two parts, right? Because if Steph, you remember in the very beginning, we try to voice out that we care, and in the long run, we want to make sure that we showed gratitude at the same time. So we did end up doing things that showed gratitude towards them eventually, and I think they did awards and stuff like that at some point. But there's a lot of involvement. I think time and materials were spent too. So it wasn't just something that we used, right? Like we want to give everybody the same content and materials.
So I'm just admiring the conversation. Continue your thought. I'll save my question.
I just was going to say it's as a leadership thing, but what I deeper or can voice now that I didn't know then was hint of why we were doing what we were doing. Of course, it was could all get along and do well and enjoy the. But it's also a deeper thing that wasn't verbalized, which was in the culture or reinforcing the brand that we worked for, the company. A huge part of that brand was empowerment. We very empowering, but what we were doing was empowering. And this investment, Chris, myself, and the other people who rallying around this whole culture shift, we were embedding the brand values of that company, saying that's what we were doing. That's the incredibly powerful thing about
collectively too, which is a big thing too, because like we all were on the same page, right? It wasn't like Steph did her own thing, Chris did his own thing. Together it was like a single voice. It's like and I think everybody was involved too, all the leadership, like everybody had a part. And so from the messaging standpoint, for people that are never in the office, right, they're out on the road, they got to see that like as a leadership group, leading forward. And I think it got the message across.
We shifted our
So
Yes,
shifted.
Go
You
for it.
spoke a new
word
language.
matters.
We really did. We
No.
started. I kind of jokingly said, "Enjoy the ride" to Chris, and well, because him and I can understand. But we it's a well-known author, John Gordon, and authored the several books, but it was the Energy Bus, and so literally started talking about driving the bus on the ride. You know, the wheels rolling along. We literally started changing our the whole company inside the building, like Chris said, the building, people who are working in their mobile offices, people who are road warriors. Started changing this language, not because it was like or the cool thing to do, but because it was being reinforced. It was being reinforced by the monthly week culture building that was being done. So yeah, there's even a speak element to it.
Was this process mentored by or proctored by somebody outside of the organization, or something that you put together and had a champion driving the direction of it?
You want to speak to that? I can speak. You're drinking, Steph. So it's
What are you
actually
drinking? Is that wine?
It's my kind of wine. It's
actually, Brad, that's a good question. We sat down and realized that there was a problem, and collectively realized like we need to do something about it, right? And
what was identified as the problem?
Ooh, you want to get that, Steph?
It's a lot of silo. There was at an organization, no matter what you do, there is typically, whether you're small or big, there's some sort of organization or operation. And our operation don't go A, stay in A, B, stay in B. It goes from D to D to E. And there was a lot of breaks from one station, one department to the next department, one person to the next person. We weren't interconnected. We either A, didn't have connected in that way, and or B, didn't have that mutual connection and care and appreciation and gratitude for each other's roles so that they could come together and work seamlessly. It wasn't like one thing that happened. It was a lot of balls everywhere, and we just needed to come together and work as a team to get it done.
Okay. So then you talked about, you identified that there was an organizational problem that you were trying to solve. And then to the other point, was this something you worked on individually, or did you go outside of the organization to have somebody work with you to build the leadership team to know how to do this type of team building, or, interdepartmental or interpersonal communication?
Well, we had a brilliant leader and president of the company, and she had invested, even prior to this, she had invested in culture building and brand building and leadership courses. And one of the authors that they had worked through before but it was a different program, a different book. And so I think that his latest, greatest thing was the Energy Bus. And so myself, Chris, and then two others who were on the leadership board, basically all the heads of the departments. We were already in the leadership board, but then the four people broke off, and it was Chris, myself, and two others to lead the charge and work through this Energy Bus program. There's a book, there's videos, there's exercises. And then we just knew we needed to make it our own. Started creating extra curricular things that can build off from the teachings and workshops. And then once it was, because at a certain point, then it was up to the four of us who we started the Energy Bus crew, or I don't
remember.
I don't know. But then we just started researching other like tools and like systems. We found one that was in Seattle called Fish, and that was really cool.
Mhm.
That one even more than the energy bus because of the local route. Brad, have you been to Seattle?
No,
Like
I
Seattle
think I
downtown?
drove through it one point when I drove across the country. I took a ferry from Alaska to Seattle, I think, and then drove from
Yeah.
Seattle over to the East Coast. So the extent of my
It was a pass
interactions in
through.
Seattle was probably a second. So no.
Got it. Okay, so are you familiar
I could
with
have
the
just said
fish
no,
throw?
but
No,
no,
like
I'm
like
not
the
familiar with the
context.
fish throwing.
No, place market in Seattle. There's a fish market, and they're very, and it's very known that if you purchase a be thrown, and these aren't fish on a line fish; these are big fish, and
How do they get the big fish? Those go on lines too, you know. Some of
I
them.
know. As soon as they were gonna call me out, they throw them to each other, right? And there's a whole brand story around why that existed. And so the fish, it's an acronym, FISH. The fish taught was the next lesson that we learned to teach through culture and leadership. Why they do that? How do you get selling fish to throwing fish, and how do you make that so integrated? You can't not talk about Seattle without talking about coffee and throwing fish.
Yeah, just to jump into that fish. So it's fish culture exercise has been around for quite a while, right? So they talked about four simple things. One is being there, for being emotionally present. Whenever you have a conversation, we were talking about, right? Doing icebreakers, and do you really care? When you're talking to someone, you got to be there. Number two is play, right? You got to be creative and just enjoy what you do. Number three was make their day. So making sure that whoever you interact with, and they either they're going to need something or have or need some assistance, you're going to make their day. So it's pretty simple. And then the fourth was choose your attitude, and being able to, like, I'm coming in to work and I'm going to be positive about it, and I'm going to help somebody. So that was really the four principles of fish.
Did you just
No, it's
remember
good.
that, or did you look that up?
He's good at looking stuff up.
I had to look that up because I don't remember the last. I remember choose your attitude was a big component, and be there. I didn't remember the other two, so I had to look up the play and make their day.
Attitude is an
Yeah.
extremely important part of, I think, everything. And you can make something good or bad based on how you look at it. I mean, there are some negative things, but if you give your best and you be positive, sometimes you can have a better day. And it's being upset or having a poor attitude doesn't do anything, in my opinion, in most cases, besides hurt yourself and make your day miserable. So always trying to stay positive is the way to go, because then you just feel better. So what you have learned through this exercise and this organization as we're going there, how has it helped you today? And I noticed you're drinking out of that tumbler, that Vim tumbler. Okay. What is it? Is it who makes it? What type of tumbler is it?
This is Vim. Vim. This is just generic. It's not like a cool Yeti or anything, but it does the trick.
I was wondering if you had a
will tell
Yeti, because I was going to say you need to send me one, because I'll drink my coffee out of it.
Oh, you don't want my Vim one?
I'll have a Vim one, and I'll put it on the shelf behind me.
This is as good as a Yeti, I promise.
Okay, send it over. So I want, before we have the next Winging It with Steph, you can put it with my collection, because I drink coffee, and then I'll say I have one now. I drink coffee and I fill it with water later. This is actually.
Yes.
See.
Well, I should have probably put my fruit juice in better, and I could have put water in this one.
Yeah, I don't even understand what you're doing over there. You're drinking. It's almost like you're having a chaser of fruit juice. So in the Vim cup, you have your vodka that nobody can notice, and you're chasing it with fruit juice. Is that what you're doing?
This is just cranberry and vodka over here.
It's just kind of what I was wondering. But so we'll go back to the exercise that you were talking about. So where you in particular, Steph, with what you're doing now with the helping companies with the brand identity and the exercises that we were talking about in the previous episodes, how has that helped you, or how do you feel that has helped you with what you're doing today? How has that helped you get to the point where, with anything, how has it helped you? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of the lessons that we were teaching, we were learning ourselves. That's a no-brainer. And so there's a lot of those things I look back for myself, just as a leader, as an owner of a company, working with clients. But when it comes to the branding piece, it was, like I said earlier, I didn't have the words for it then, but now it's activation of the brand, right? We have these core words, and through the owners of that company, they believed so strongly in the words, the manifesto, the things that we were set beyond just selling the product, that they invested in the company to get to deepen that. And so what I do with that, when I bring those memories back to me, it's okay, if you're going to tell me these exercises about your company, and you're going to tell me that ability is, one of your most core important things. Okay. So tell me, how does that bleed into your staff? How does that bleed into your building, your infrastructure, the way you sell? If sustainability is that important, and you need to be able to show and voice what that, not just have a fancy word. You've heard me say this before, but it's not just words on a poster that one walks by ever again, right? It's lived. I also say it is your brand, the many aspects of it, the language you speak, right? That I said that earlier about our, kind of language, but that's actually a language that brand crafted appropriately speak internally and externally. And they create their own. So it's a beautiful lesson in I guess, brand activation. We think of brand activation as, how businesses bring their brand, but really internal brand activation, making that come to life, is just as important. So I guess I got to do the backwards, right? I got to part of and influence that. And now I get to regular basis so that my clients understand the work we do together and live on a bookshelf. It has to be like actively. It's a long answer, but I hope that made sense.
No, it's a good answer, but it is a key point you mentioned. A lot of exercises that companies go through or people go through, it's important to keep that current. I mean, if you're going through an exercise just for the emotions of going through the exercise and you never use it again, you just waste a lot of time. But if you can keep it on the surface to where you can continually enrich and grow, I think it's worthwhile to go to, because wasting time just for the one, I think everyone can get a sense that, oh, we're just going through this exercise for the exercise of it. But to be able to take what you learn and deploy it within the organization and see the reward of what your hard work is important. And that's everybody's hard work, because not just the leadership group, but also the individuals that participate in those exercises do put some work into it. And it does help build some strength within an organization, I believe.
Yeah, well, and Chris said it earlier, at the beginning, people a little like skeptical of the intention. And I'd hope that no one was skeptical of, but us, like, what's their agenda? I think we came in with such enthusiasm, and like, we were total nerds about this I set forth for several years. We were total nerds about. I hope that no one was skeptical of us, but possibly. And they'd never experienced it. And it was kind of lived. And that's, to your point, Brad, that's why it's not just about the program that you buy, the energy bush, the fish, we're all reading together, right? It's not just about those silos and moments in a company. It's about the foundational level of what we believe, and that through cultures, because cultures are going to change as the people who are in the company change, the leaders, heads, the staff, all of that changes. But if the foundational pieces like sustainability, or making up words, I'm not necessarily referencing that company, But if
How are you making up words?
just
Those are
because
real
my
words.
brain just, I don't, was it? I don't know. I'm making up words. But whatever you truly believe, whether they're words or statements, those things, from the way that you answer your phone, somebody feels they get their product in their hands, and that is part of your brand. And so if you aren't living that the same way with the way your internal team functions, from the way they walk in the door, from the way they sit in their office, from the way cooler, from the way they get their paycheck, looks like, says, has, Christmas party or not party, right? All can, when done right, reinforce what you stand for. Therefore, bleed through in their roles as well. And that's what we were out for. That's what we were set out to do in that brand, so that as they're packing in the front door, ringing out a client, payroll every moment, these other important things. It wasn't about, oh, I'm signing. It's, man, I feel so good about the lives I'm changing by doing this job. So, yeah.
So they feel as
It was
part
a
of the
really good
organization. They feel a sense of ownership with
Yeah.
what they're doing, so which helps with morale and helps also with quality of work, I believe. So it's important to people.
I
A
think
lot of times I come into cases where individuals don't understand the impact of who somebody would interact with in your business, regardless of the position. Because even if you go to a store and there's somebody, a greeter, or somebody, if it's a place where you have a cashier or somebody who takes an order, somebody's whole image of your brand is who they're speaking with or who they're interacting with. So it's important that they feel a sense of pride or ownership in what they're doing. Because how many times you say, I'm never going back to that place again because the service sucked.
Yep.
Right. And it's just maybe one or two bad people that are having a bad day that ruined it now for somebody.
Yeah. I want to point out something though, is the um all the people that were part of that journey with us, whether they were someone, a resource or someone working there, and not necessarily in a leadership role, it was more of helping them find their purpose. And so when they start doing their job, they found the connection, like, why am I doing this, right? What is the purpose of my task? Well, it was bigger than that, right? Like, I think one of the things that one of the examples we did was, putting a thank you card on each box. And so it created that sense of care and culture. So all the customers that are also getting that, right? As an example, sorry about that. As an example, so I think that was important to
Not only did
give
they get
them
a
a
thank
sense
you
of
card,
purpose.
it was signed by, so a human was behind
Yes.
that purpose.
Yes.
The human behind that purpose, that human's life, passion, and story. And it goes right back to how we started. Now all of a sudden, I care. If I'm going to call and say, hey, one of my products, I'm so mad at Eric, who all me, it's a little, that's not going to happen. It's going to be, hey, I happen to notice that a human packed my box product. Is there any chance I could get that shipped? It just changes of consumer to product, that whole trifecta of a relationship. I didn't want to cut you off, Chris, but I just didn't know if you remember, like the signatures, like that was such a big deal.
That was a big deal. And I think one of the examples we talked about during that exercise is the story about NASA, right? Like one of the presidents, I can't remember who it was, but came up to a janitor and said, what do you do here? And it's like, I put a man in the moon, even though he was a janitor at the NASA office, because he had a purpose. And you know what I mean? So it's seeing that bigger picture. I think that's what you and I did, and others, of course, in the leadership group. That's what we're trying to drive, right? It's not just a paycheck. Obviously, yeah, a paycheck is great, but giving them a purpose of why we're doing things, making lives easier, and and even delivering products on time, right? Like that means that for people that get this product, that relies on this product to do their business, it's their livelihood, and why it's important, why we're delivering these products on time, with care, because then they're making their customers happy because they're getting the products on time, and so they're making it's their livelihood.
Yeah, it's a spiral effect for sure.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That's good. That's interesting. Well, Steph, Winging It with Steph, episode 1 live test. We'll have to do this again.
This
in
is a
another
great
couple-
topic, by the way, because
It is a great
thing.
topic.
Yeah.
It's again, we have a talk about a lot of things on the podcast, and Steph, you and I had spoken about it, and Chris, we speak about it all the time. Is what's the intent? Just saying that Business Central, it's or towards Microsoft Dynamics 365. There's another aspect to this realm of what we do, and it's the human interaction or the implementation interaction or the business interaction. You have the technical aspect or the use of an application, but how you implement it and what you do is another interesting point. So it's important for us to have some of these topics that we shoot off of for everyone to get an understanding of, to help.
What you guys do is all managed by humans. It's all humans, no matter there. You can't take away the human element. And so this care, like, this whole episode and gratitude and appreciation and culture, like one of your guys' episodes, I know you're trying to wrap now, but one of your guys' episodes recently, one of your episodes permissions and about how you need to like stop, communicate, and say, I need to understand the users they need, and that there's that expectation that you should just know it because you're coming in and building it or fixing it, but like even slowing down and just stopping and having that conversation, like that's a cultural thing. Like for a lot of people, what's one of the integrity is often like a core value, so integrity is like stopping and doing what's right, and sometimes it's not process of building a software or using a tool or what have you. It's about doing it right.
Yep.
But hopefully listeners find this really valuable.
No, it's definitely valuable. There's a lot of value in this type of information. I think it's becomes more valuable with the climate of the workforce today, where you have the remote employees, you have the hybrid employees, and you have the employees that are in the office. Having some way for the employees to feel as they're part of an organization while they're sitting in their office at home somewhere, there's quite a bit more emphasis on the importance of having these types of exercises. I've mentioned to Chris before, I know in some companies I've spoken with, they've had meetings where some of the online platforms allowed you to have breakout rooms and would force people to go into rooms to talk to people that they normally wouldn't talk to, instead of having large meetings where somebody overpowers it. But all these little things that can be done to help people feel like they're part of an organization and get to know people. And even firsthand, I've always been an advocate of video conferencing, and I've always pushed it everywhere I've gone. But even switching and seeing a transformation and going into places that don't use it, to getting them to start to do it or feel like they should do it, the interaction and the working relationship is far better than somebody who just sees like a blank screen and can't.
Yeah.
See, there you go. You got me paused because I do my, I had to. Steph, you're supposed to coach me on those filler words.
I want to make a quick comment to, we're talking about this culture building in organizations, and it just doesn't happen with one single person. It has to. What helped for us, with Steph and I, where we worked at, is that we got the buy-in from the owner of the company, and the president, and and so that itself, it wouldn't happen, or it could have happened, but it wouldn't have been as effective if
Yes.
we didn't get the buy-in and the same push and support that we got from the leadership, the leadership and of the company. So that was a big deal for me, right? It's like, man, they actually care. They want to put a lot of effort. So that was a big thing. Not just, of course, there's a lot of steps that you have to do to make it work, but that was a big icing on the cake from my perspective.
Yeah, and it all stems from the top.
Oh, it does. It is important. It goes both ways from the bottom and the top, but you have to lead from the front, as they say. People will be inspired by you if they feel that you care. If they feel that you don't care, or they don't feel that you'll have the drive and the initiative to do it, then why should they? I've always had the notion of never ask someone to do something you wouldn't do or haven't done yourself, and that's an important message to give to people, that I'm not asking for anything more than I've already done or I would do tomorrow if I needed to. So with that, Steph, we'll have to schedule another Winging It with Steph, and we'll have a good topic plan to have many ideas for this, and we'll do it live. And hopefully by that time, I'll have that Vim tumbler sitting here on my desk to be able to drink some juice.
I'll get him out.
Do you have different colors?
No, I'm just
absolutely.
my branded colors.
No, I like it. I like it. Well, absolutely do that.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Steph. Thank you for your time and doing this test of a live podcast. We did kind of wing it, and I appreciate it. I hope you both have a pleasant day. Ciao, ciao.
Take care.